Thank you so much, Leslie, for joining the In Alignment podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today, like beyond excited. And I will read your bio just to give the audience a quick background on who you are, and then we can jump into it. Leslie Avant-Brown is an innovator, facilitator, coach, and thought leader within movement work. Her relentless desire to fuel systems change in support of vulnerable communities has changed the fabric of this work. With her down to earth demeanor, she brings a unique mix of laughter, curiosity, healing, creativity, and strategy to support conductors of change. Those who are designing innovative strategies that benefit future generations. She believes that moving beyond traditional leadership approaches will revolutionize the way people work and thrive. And this is such a beautiful quote from you at the end. I have dedicated my life to supporting communities to build trust, identify new leadership, increase diversity of voice and choice, incorporate growth and healing strategies, and build sustainability. I do this because I know what we plant today will bloom tomorrow. Oh my gosh, I love it. I love every single part of it. I was driving yesterday and I saw some blooming willow trees, and I was like, this is so perfect. I'm so excited. So,
Indeed.
yes, thank you so much for being here. And I know I just did a quick bio of who you are, but I would love to hear it from your own mouth. Like, who is Leslie Avant Brown?
Hmm. Wow, that's interesting. I feel like it changes every day. So, who is Leslie Avant Brown today? I really feel like I am a sort of a child of dreamers and of visionaries. I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, born and raised from a family who, came here from the South. I sort of say I'm a mix between sort of folks who were free for a long time at the top of the mountains of Lookout Mountain, Tennessee, and folks who were enslaved in Georgia. And so I think that mix really, in a lot of ways, kind of colors how I see the world and how I see myself as a change maker. And so I have a huge sort of heart for freedom and liberation. And I think it's because I stand on the shoulders of giants.
Oh my gosh, stand on the shoulders of giants. I love that. And how did the journey of you coming from Detroit and your background all the way to you forming Blooming Willow, like what did that journey look like?
Ooh, good question. I think for me, the journey really looked like um, always rooting for the underdog, right? I think often at times, like I've been the underdog. I think I continue to be the underdog, right? The one that they do not expect to pop forward. And I think because of that experience, really growing up and not being the ones that are expected to truly step forward. I think my work has always been to look at who are my second chancers, who are those who are ready to step forward but not quite sure how to do so. So I started off my work in capacity building really early on. I like to say my work went between burnout and boredom in sort of supporting like next generation leaders on the front line who didn't go to Girl Scouts and who weren't in all of the leadership programs. And then also doing some evaluation. And so at some point in my career, I decided to really kind of step even more boldly into starting to design some new innovative strategies and decided to head west and lived in the Bay Area for about 14 years and now have recently returned to Detroit. But during my time in the Bay, I kind of went through my own experience of burnout, really becoming disappointed with our strategies, seeing people of color continue to be tokenized and silenced
Mhm.
within these movement spaces. And through my own coaching experience, really started to see coaching as a way forward for folks to reclaim their power, reclaim their voice, and to begin designing strategies that were outside of the box.
Yes, I love that. And for anyone that is listening, so Blooming Willow is the coaching program that I was a part of. I was a part of the cohort and it is 2023. So I was, oh my gosh, was it 2021? It
I
was
think it
20.
was.
That is
Yeah.
crazy. It's already been 2 years. Wow. But I was a part of the cohort in 2021, and this program was absolutely life-changing. I remember one of our first sessions, probably the first day, you were like, look in the mirror because the person you're going to become at the end of this program is a completely different person. So of course we go in it and we're like, okay, we're going to learn the tools to become better coaches and learn how to guide people and learn how to guide people through transformation. But I don't think what I've realized is that I was going to go through such potent transformation throughout this course. And then Blooming Willow like landed on my lap at just such divine timing, like when I really needed it, like the books that we read, the 7-step book about like empaths and highly intuitives and sensitivities like that. I needed that book. Oh my gosh, I cannot tell you like so much at the time. So in general, and even the cohort, like I'm still in touch with people from the cohort, a few of us in the DMV area. We're going to link up soon. So I almost just want to give my flowers while I'm here. Like I'm very grateful for Blooming Willow and anyone who's interested in coaching or even just going through transformation themselves, I would highly recommend the program.
I'm so happy to hear you say that, Coach. I mean, I like to say we are a forever community because I think to truly stand as a change maker, kind of in the face of our current society, we need a beloved community. And I think that's what we're able to be for one another through providing each other coaching or just even reaching out and being able to touch the other folks who want to leave the world a little better than they found it. And so we're not like the firm, but we are connected forever. I love that.
Yes, I agree. And the world needs it definitely right now. So you spoke a little bit about burnout and you use the words like burnout and boredom. And I've also been there as well. And I feel like a lot of people who will listen to this podcast will also relate to burnout. What are some of the strategies that you think people can do to really transition their life from burnout and boredom and overworked and not feeling like they're in alignment to a life that feels truly fulfilling?
Yes. As you know, Coach, one of my sort of soapboxes that I talk about all the time with In Blooming Willow is really an invitation to the pause. Right. And the pause, I think a lot of folks use the language of pausing throughout their day, but we really invite people to use the pause as an intentional strategy to support liberation. Because when we give ourselves permission to pause, to step away from the doing, we really then have an opportunity to just be, right? And I think in that both conscious and intentional sort of choice to just be without trying to fade stuff or fix it or force it, we're able to really become present and get in touch with our wise selves, which we talk a lot about at Blooming Willow. And the wise self is really defined as the part of you that was never born and will never die. Right? Little kids call it the real me. And so I think like when we start to pause, we're able to really get in touch with what we want. So I think the pause is one of the most powerful strategies. And I think for my conductors And for folks who come to Blooming Willow for just training, that are not, planning to become coaches, we still introduce the pause, because we think that that is truly the way, like for my change makers, to move forward powerfully.
Mm-hmm. What I'm curious, when it
Mm,
comes to the pause and it comes to you personally,
mm.
what is like a vision, like paint a picture of what your ideal pause would look like in this moment?
Ooh. I think right now, I talk about 5 different types of pauses, right? And so one of the types of pauses is really around being connected. It's a connective pause. And it's really like this zoom out where we realize, like, I'm not alone in this. Like, we're connected through DNA, we're connected through sort of relationships, we're connected through experiences. And so right now, I've been spending a lot of time doing some connective pauses and to really recharge myself, to be with people. An example is like this weekend, I went to see Beyonce down in Houston, right? And got to
Oh
be
my
with lots
gosh.
fans. Yes, yes, it was amazing. It was amazing. My wife and I were celebrating our 15th anniversary. And so we were like, why not? Beyonce and Megan, let's do it. And so I think, just really like giving yourself permission to pause, to stop working. We forever have work to do, but to really give ourselves an opportunity to connect with other folks who love Beyonce, connect with the music, just really feel good, understanding like there's something bigger, right? Than just, doing the work.
Oh my gosh, yes. And congrats to you going to Beyonce. Oh my God. In Houston. I know like that's the number one show probably that everyone wants to go to. I love that for you. Did Meg come out? Like, did she perform?
Oh, she absolutely did,
My
and she did
gosh.
amazing. I'm a fan of Savage. I think often too, when folks think about like, are you a healer? They have like a certain picture of what you look like and who you are, and I think our work is really an invitation to this remembrance that we are all healers, right? And so we can absolutely listen to Savage with Megan and Beyonce, and still understand like that we have to prioritize our healing within this work. So yes, Megan was there.
1,000%. Healers can look like anything. I feel like in our society is this like love and light. You have to have this certain image to be a healer, to contribute in a loving way, but it can be anything, like you said.
Yeah, it's everyone, right? And I think that's the thing that a lot of folks have forgotten, is like that a part of our existence includes like paying attention to where we need healing, and really giving ourselves permission to notice what we need to heal. Right. And so even in those like connective pauses, it's like it's good to just be around other folks who are laughing, who are enjoying life, who are having fun, and that just reminds us, right, that again, there's something bigger. We are a part of a beautiful world. Yeah.
Mhm. And even with myself, when it comes to just like letting the other healing parts shine more, I'm trying to create more space for like the spicy side of me. Come up
Yes.
because it's there, and sometimes I tone it down
Mhm.
because it's I'm like, okay, but it's no, like that's a part of my medicine. Like my medicine is spicy, like ginger. Ginger is first of all like my favorite you know healing tool in my life. Well, it's one of them. Ginger is
Mhm.
hot. Like ginger is spicy. If you look at nature, it's diversity. So I want the diversity within me to have more room to play.
I think that's it, coach, right? Because I think, again, so much of our society is visual, right? And so we imagine what healing is supposed to look like. We think about like spaces of healing, like hospitals that are all like white predominantly, like, and then like very sterile, right? We think about like in our mind, like what ancestral healers look like, and they're like, very serious and all of this. But when we really think about our own healing experiences, it's diverse in what we need, right? And so like I love that you're sort of leaning into gender, right? Like let's bring some spice to healing. Yeah.
Yes. And before we get off the, Beyonce, well, I just want to know, like, what was your favorite part of the show?
Oh, I think, it was really beautiful. Her daughter Blue came out, right? And so like, I've seen like clips of Blue like in the show, but I really felt like her daughter was like fully in her power. And so watching Beyonce like really look at her future and watch Blue like bring her own energy, her own voice to it. Like at one point, I saw Beyonce pause and like take a big gulp, and then she was like, "Yes, I just want to, shout out Blue Ivy." And I think there's always this beauty around like watching the legacy, watching the future, right? Like understanding like there's a continuance here. And so yeah, of course all of the songs she performed for 3 hours straight, 30 songs, right? It was wild. But that moment was really, really powerful.
I think that's one of my favorite parts. I haven't been to the show in person. I like watched it on YouTube a few times with friends, but that's one of my favorite parts too, because when Beyonce says like, she's like, this is my skin folk, like whatever that line is, you could
Mm-hmm.
like feel it, like she's saying it from the deepest part of her soul, and it just like it hits you, and it's like, whoa, it's emotional.
It
So,
is. It
mm,
is. I mean, it allows all of us to think about like, yeah, what is our ripple, right? Like, what are we literally spending time to pour into, right? And so for her in this, it's her little one, right? Not just the performance, her performance, which was spectacular. The show as her Virgo self was, details all around. But to really think about her legacy of her children, I'm like, that's beautiful, right? We get to be complex in who we are.
yes. We spoke a little bit about community, even when it comes to like, how would you like to pause, spending time with friends? I think the question is, what is your definition of community?
Ooh, that's a good one, coach. What is my definition? I think it evolves.
Mhm.
I think right now, community is really the people who you stand with, right? The folks who are really, for me, community feels like folks who are pouring love into you and you're pouring love into them. People who are working towards similar and aligned values, right? People who are really, for me, I often stand in communities of change makers. So folks who are really like giving a lot of themselves on behalf of the whole, right? And so when I think about community, that's who it is, right? Like who's pouring into you? Who are you pouring into? Who's standing with you? Who's building with you? That's my community.
Yes, my heart is so full right now, just like hearing you speak about it and thinking about the people who I consider my community. I feel very grateful.
Yeah, I had to show because I was like, it's not neighborhoods, right? Because it's like, these are my neighbors. This may not be my community. Some of them might be, right?
Mhm.
But I think that's why I say it evolves for me, right? But as I get older and wiser, I'm like, who's really riding for me, right? Who's loyal?
Yes, 1,000%.
Mm.
I remember, I believe in the book that you gave the coaches in training. I believe on the first page, and this is like I'm referencing 2 years ago, so
Oh, wow.
my memory's a little foggy, but I believe on one of the first pages you had a quote from The Ancient Healing Wisdom of Africa, the book by Maladoma Sume, and it
Mm.
was a quote about community, I believe, and that's one of my favorite books of all time.
Mm.
When I read that quote, I was like, oh, this is really alignment. Like this program is for me.
I think it's so interesting because for so many of my coaches who start this conductor's journey, right? They find signs along the way. And so it's really interesting to me when I hear from different folks. They were like, there was this picture and I have that tattoo, right? There was this quote and it was my favorite. I'm always like, wow, this is beautiful. Because as I was creating it, and I'll just be transparent, coach, as I was creating the book, I was like, what am I doing? Right? Like all of the other coaches' books, they're like long and they're, white pages with the black text. And I'm like, mine has full color, mine has images, mine have huge spaces that require that you pause. And so I was really at times very timid in the creation, right? And was really sort of crying, pausing, asking, like, why am I doing this? And so it's always beautiful to hear how folks receive it.
Yes, a lot of those images definitely stood out to me, and I still reference them today in my day-to-day lives, and also when I'm talking to other people. Even when I use this with my family, I think I told my mom about it, but the visual that I'm talking about is the onion. And
Oh, yes.
yes, it's the page with the onion, and it's all about removing those layers to get to the core and to the truth of who you are. I mean, that's such a powerful visual. Like I think about that all the time when I feel like there are extra layers of like fluff or just, things that aren't mine that need to get off of me. And it's like, no, how do I get back to the core of my onion? So those visuals, and I'm a visual learner. So
Mhm.
definitely appreciate the visuals throughout the book.
That's beautiful. And I was so in love with your family during graduation. I remember your little, I don't know if it was your nephew who spoke and talked about how your coaching had made an impact on him. And I often speak about him, right, being one of the youngest change makers who's taking our work forward, right? And so I think for me, it also feeds me, right, to watch the ripple continue.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I like, I almost forgot about that. That was such a great moment. I have to let him listen to this first episode of the podcast. No, that was a really beautiful moment.
Yes, it definitely changed me. So tell him shouts out and lots of love for him speaking his truth during that time.
Yes, I'll chat with him today or tomorrow. He's going to be so excited and like amped. Yeah.
He's gonna come back. He's gonna be one of my conductors. We're now 163 conductors and growing. Right, we really have become a movement, and folks are starting to recognize each other. It was a funny, like, short story. Two folks were in a meeting, and now that we're reemerging from COVID, and so they were in an in-person meeting in a movement space, and one person was speaking and was talking a lot about pause and pausing. And so during the break, the other person went up to them and was like, I hear you using the pause a lot in your language. And they were like, yes, I'm in this program called Conductors. And they were like, I'm a conductor too. I thought I recognized, right? Just even the energy. So we are a growing underground society, soon to be visible, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh, that is so exciting.
Mhm.
You spoke a little bit about what it was like creating this, the program in the book for you. And you mentioned like you were timid a little bit at first in the creation. And, us on the other end, this is one of the most impactful things that we've ever encountered in our life. And what would you say is your advice for anyone? And, even myself, like the Alignment Academy is something that, like, this is the beginning, this is the foundation for it. What
Yeah.
would you say to someone that's leaning into their creation energy, but it is new, it is a
Mhm.
little bit scary, they
Yeah.
might not see themselves fully yet or see the true impact of what it is. Like they know deep in their soul how
Yeah.
impactful it could be and how it could really help society and help people. But there is that, like it's a little scary sometimes. So what would you say to that?
Yeah, I would say, like, again, give yourself permission to pause, right? But also trust yourself. I think that becomes the barrier is that so many people feel fear and they think that that means stop. right? Fear
Mm-hmm.
just means fear, right? Like, and so it does not mean stop. It may mean that we're hitting up on edges. It may mean we're going into new territory. It may mean that we need more things to prepare, right? And so I think it's really about trusting that the message that you're receiving, that gut feeling that you have, that what you know to happen next is right for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And just really giving yourself permission to move forward. And when you feel that nervousness or that timidness, like pause, take a few breaths, right? If you notice you feel alone in it, find partnership, right? And just really, I think the big piece is not stopping, right? Not stopping. And I think that fear often for a lot of folks, especially my change makers, is also around failure, around like, what if it doesn't work? What if I fail? Right. And I think that also becomes an opportunity for us to kind of pull in our coaches skills of curiosity, right? Even in the failure, what are the lessons? What is it teaching you? What is it showing you? And so really like giving yourself permission to reframe what it means to grow and to stretch and to try new things.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so much is coming up for me right now because I definitely relate to that. And I think a few things are coming to my mind. So I feel like I recently pushed through the fear of failure
Mm.
because it was that, in the back of my mind, like, okay, well, what if I create this and it's public and it doesn't really work out? And I had to redefine, well, what does success mean for me?
Yep.
And yes, my redefined definition of success means feeling good in my body. And I
Mm.
decided that I already reached success because I currently feel good in my body.
I love that, coach. I may have to borrow that. Feeling good in my body. That's like such a good metrics of success, and one that is not kind of currently held, right? So I'm loving that. I might have to pass that forward, coach. I'll give you street cred.
Yes. And then I also redefine what is like the definition of empowerment. And I decided that empowerment to me means having choice. And I also have choice in my life. So I feel successful. I feel empowered. Therefore, the fear of failure is kind of void now.
Yes, come
Yeah.
on now, coach. Yes. I'm
Yeah.
like this podcast is timely. I'm like
No,
I'm receiving the lessons. I'm like, yes.
it's very timely. And so am I. I took so many notes over here on my end. I think something else that also stood out to me was like the vibration of fear. And this is just for me personally, and this is kind of how I help transmute the fear. It feels very close to excitement
Ooh.
sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So if fear was coming up when I had like the idea of the podcast or the idea of the Alignment Academy, I would say, okay, is this fear or is it excitement? And then
Mm.
I almost couldn't tell. So I just decided that I'm going to let it be excitement instead of fear because it felt so similar.
Yeah, yeah. I do think that they are born of the same seed, right? Because there's like such a big vibration for a lot of people in both in the experience of excitement and the experience of fear, right? It's like the shakeup. And so I think, like really like, as you said, like just kind of being with that feeling like this could also be excitement, right? What if it is, right? What am I excited about? Even around the fear, right? And I think the other thing I want to name is this, specifically for people of color.
Hmm.
A lot of the things that we're visioning, a lot of the things that we are manifesting are things that were dangerous for our ancestors to even dream or to name aloud. And so we start to talk about breaking generational curses, right? I think that's also a part of the fear. They planted it within us to stay alive. And so as we push beyond that, we have to honor the blood memories, right? We have to honor the rewriting that we're doing as a part of inviting in next generation change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, I am here. I receive so much. I know my camera isn't on, but I'm making like the most, like my hands are in the air. I'm just like, oh, like a word, a whole word. So real, 1,000%. Oh my gosh, yes. So when it comes to your program,
Mm,
and this is kind of a vague question, but what are some of the biggest shifts you've seen with coaches?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I think a couple things. One is I really, you start with intuition, right? And so the first book is I Feel Your Pain by Dr. Nikki Elliott, along with, our textbook, which is Pause as a Practice. Uh, and I think the reason that I bring that in every single time in that way is because I think so many folks don't trust their intuition.
Mm-hmm.
Or they trust it for little things like where's the parking spot, but they don't trust it in sort of when they notice like I shouldn't be in this space or I shouldn't be with these people, right? And so one of the big sort of growth areas that I see for my coaches is in beginning to like intentionally listen to their intuition and trusting their intuition to guide them.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other part of sort of the biggest change that I see for a lot of my change makers is like saying no. Right, because I think for change makers we're called to be of service, right? Like we were born, we were designed in a lot of ways to be of service, but I think that in the past there has not been many teachings that allow us to think about what it looks like and what are the boundaries of our service. And so I think what I see is as my change makers start to get in touch with their wise self is that they have more clarity on who and where and how they serve. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
so they're able to say no when stuff is out of alignment with that. And I think that makes my change makers pretty badass, right? Because they're like, they are aligning themselves like unapologetically.
Yes. And this is the In Alignment podcast. So what does living in alignment look like or feel like or sound like or smell like to you?
Yes. What do I see? I see like a row of dominoes, right?
Ooh.
But it's like a row of dominoes that moves. And so, like every day, several times a day, you have to look at, am I aligned, right? If I were to move right now, will these all line up in the way I want? Because I do think that the pieces slide, right? As we morph, as we experience pain, as we move through the world. So I think for me, alignment becomes fun when I use that metaphor of like lining up the dominoes.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it becomes frustrating because it's just like I have to align again. Why is this not staying aligned? Um, but I think the more that we can make it fun, alignment feels good, right? When you can look and see like this is intentional. This is what I want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. And you also spoke about intuition as something being like one of the biggest shifts that many coaches have received. And I feel like for myself personally, that was one of my biggest takeaways as well. At a time where I really, really needed it. Similar, not like a one-to-one, of course, to the author of the book, but when my intuitive gifts were opening more and I didn't really have boundaries with it, and I was like a hot mess with, and I have no guidance. So the book came into my life literally like that was God. It was a perfect alignment, and it felt so good I do these tools daily, still to this day.
Yeah, I think my biggest lesson from Dr. Nikki Elliott in that book was, just because you are intuiting it, right, or receive information about it, doesn't mean you have to share it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I think for me, my gift was on like sort of overworking, in that, if I received a message from somebody, I was delivering it. I was delivering all of them, whether or not they were prepared, whether or not they were ready. I was like, I have a message for you. And so I think for me, she gave me that permission, or that sort of knowing that just because I receive it doesn't mean I have to share it, and I get to be in choice, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I think what I received from the book was boundaries on when I want to dial up my receptivity and when I want to dial it down. Like, remember, she was at the concert and it was just, it was like, whoa, she just wanted to dial it down. But yes, definitely a game changer. That book was amazing. I'm actually rereading it right now.
Yeah, I reread it every cohort and I get something different every time.
Mhm.
And I think too, she breaks down kind of the different ways that you can receive intuition. And I think in deepening sort of my wisdom in those areas, I've been able to like grow, right? Beyond my sort of natural intuitive way of knowing.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Now I'm super excited for the reread because I'm at that part where she's about to go deeper into the different intuitive types. Yes. And I think the next question I ask is going to be a closing question because I want to be mindful of time. Um, yeah. So you mentioned earlier in your bio that what we plant today will bloom tomorrow. So I'm curious just about some of the things, and of course I know like seeds grow in the darkness, so share whatever you want to share, but what are the some of the things that you want to plant with blooming willow in the future?
Yeah. Uh, so for me with Blooming Willow, what I got over my pause, I take a pause every August, as you know, 30-day pause to just restore and recharge from all of the powerful work I do throughout the rest of the year. But one of the things I got this August during my pause was that I really want to make Blooming Willow more of a home for change makers, not just for my coaches. And so what I am starting to open up now, and which will start in the early year of 2024, is like more healing space.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to start doing more group coaching for change makers. I'm going to look at sort of creating like intentional community spaces. So spaces for one of my largest communities within Blooming Willow, Black women, spaces for my Asian change makers, spaces for sort of my what I call my all aboard or change makers that are really looking at supporting communities of color from all backgrounds. And so those are my three initial like sort of seedlings, is what does it look like to come in and receive group coaching, receive one-on-one support monthly within that intentional community. So that's one of them. And then I think the other sort of big thing for me is I'm writing a book called 30 Days. It's really 30 days of pause practices. It's going to be called Healers Wear Hoodies, which is just really my mantra. So really different ways that everyday folks can start to practice the pause and really starting to take back our power in our ability to heal ourselves.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I am so excited for both of those. Like, sign me up for the pre-order for the book right now. Sign me up for the group coaching practice for Changemakers. I would love to be a part of both of those. And I'm super excited. Your book is going to be amazing. I mean, the coaching book you already created is amazing, and I still reference it to this day. So I'm so excited for you. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Thank you for that, coach. Yes, I need that inspiration because, again, I'm still human. So I started writing the 30 days of pause practices, and then of course I got nervous. I'm like, oh, are folks gonna read this? I'm talking about reminding folks to pause and listen to music. Folks already know this. So I think all of us have those limiting beliefs and those parts that are trying to stop us from manifesting what we know to be true. So I appreciate all of the love and energy around, like, yes, finish it up, coach.
And people do need that. So many people, especially women of color, are so burnt out. Corporate America has a lot of people in the chokehold, and people don't really know what to do. And once someone has created that pattern for so long, a lot of people they genuinely don't know how to get out of it. So even though it is second nature to you and just a part of your identity and who you are, a lot of people definitely need that.
I receive it. Thank you for that, coach.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. I'm so excited. You were the first person I interviewed. And I mean, there were so many gems throughout this entire chat. I literally was writing notes, like just for me. I'm like, oh, this is a takeaway that I need right now in this moment. So thank you so much for your wisdom and your guidance and for being you.
Oh, you are welcome so much, coach. And I'm so proud of you. I remember like during your sunrise session, you were really like already leaning deeply into your healing journey. But now to see it manifesting in this way, where you're just rippling right from your place of truth, it's just so beautiful to witness. So I feel honored to be here. I feel honored that you invited me. Whatever you need, let me know as you grow, as you heal.
Yes, thank you. I received that fully. My heart is very full.